Hey guys, Mortis here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I paint my Death Company Space Marines. In a more grimdark fashion, of course. It's a very easy but effective method, using standard Citadel acrylics and Villainy's enamels. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get started. I did not do anything crazy for the kit bashing. I simply added a chain and attached a skull to it, like a grizzly trophy or some sort. And I sculpted a fat cable attached to his power pack. If I remember correctly, that's what they're called. And before anything, I stippled on Abaddon Black randomly across all the armor. You might think that this is unnecessary, but the black primer, which is Chaos Black, and Abaddon Black is actually slightly different. So this will help to build up some texture. I painted the right shoulder using Citadel's Mephiston Red. I did about 3 coats to get a smooth and even base. I repeated this on the left knee as well as the gun casing. This is to make the iconic Death Company cross easier. You'll see why soon. And now, to make the cross super easy, masking tape. I used one I bought from Grimdark World. I think it's like 3 or 2 millimeter. So cut tiny bits and form the Death Company cross. And if you aren't lazy as me, you could always hand paint these. And this is how we're looking now, ready to paint back the black paint using Abaddon Black. And now I know that the airbrush police are gonna be on my ass. But you can easily do this by a brush. If you do, remember not to have too thin paint or all too thick. You don't want the paint running between the tapes. I applied it in a few thin coats. Now go back and do a little cleanup if needed. Now we're gonna do some metallics. I'm using Citadel's lead belcher. I'm using it on the gun, the chains, parts of the power pack, the face and so on. I'm now using lead belcher again to do the armor chipping and scratches. And again, I'm using a sponge. And remember that sometimes less is more. If you overdo this, it's gonna look unnatural and just too much. But of course, you paint how you like. This is just how I feel about it. Once I've reached a stage that I think is just enough of stippling, I baked the skull using Baneblade Brown from Citadel, and I then overbrush it using Screaming Skull, also from Citadel. And I know it looks like I'm kinda shaky on the hand, but I'm really not. The thing is that when I paint while filming, I have to sit kinda far away to make room for the camera, so I have to hold the very end of the brush, even when painting details. So it's like a handicap painting on video, but it's fun. I then went in and shaded the skull using Seraphim Sepia, also from Citadel. I painted the Aquila and the skull symbol on his power fist with a mix of 50-50 Retributor armor and lead belcher. The reason I mixed this is because I don't want the gold to be all too bright and shiny. I painted the cable on the back using Flash Gitz yellow. I painted the wings on the symbol using Ulthan Grey, and I highlighted it with white scar. I also painted the edges of the blood drop symbol with the same gold and lead belcher mix. I forgot to mention that I painted the bag and the dagger sheath, or whatever the name of that is, in white scar as well. And I did it uneven on purpose to give the contrast page with the snakebite leather and Cygor brown something to bite onto. I painted the lens on the eye and the blood drop on the shoulder with the Blood Angel's red contrast. I then based out the face using Bugman's glow. And here is where I messed up, because I forgot to hit record when I painted on the first highlight, which is Cadian flesh tone. But as you can see, it's nothing particular, just a basic highlight, leaving Bugman's glow in the deep areas. And for the next highlight, I did a 1-to-1 mix of Deepkin flesh and Cadian flesh tone. And as I was highlighting, I kept putting more Deepkin flesh into the mix, as I wanted to give a more pale vampiric kind of face. But if you feel like you don't want to go all the way and just get it done as fast as possible, you can just stop whenever you like, throw on a shade and call it a day. And now, I know that the face all of a sudden got way paler, but don't worry, it didn't actually. I accidentally increased the light on the table lamp I'm using, so it looks brighter than it actually is. And I did some shading around the mouth, nose, and eye and ears using Carbo Crimson shade from Citadel. And when the Carbo Crimson was completely dry, I went in with the Berserker blood shade all over the face. And now this is where drill takes a turn. Time for enamels, the best part of painting. And these are just some of the inks I'll be using today, from Villainy inks of course. Now if you don't have these, just use your favorite enamels, or oil washes. Though it will not have the exact same result, since these are extremely unique, and can be used for way more purposes than just washes. First up is Goon's Crime, and I mixed this 1-to-1 with white spirits. And I'm doing this as a rather thick unifying wash on all of the armor, weapons and so on. I do not, however, use this on the face. For the face, I used Dystopian Brown. And I did 2 parts white spirits and 1 part Dystopian Brown. I wanted it to be very subtle. Now you can either allow up to like 40 minutes for this to dry, or you can go in with a hairdryer like I do because I'm impatient. And I go around 40 seconds with the hairdryer to get it kinda dry to the touch. There might be some crevices where it's still wet, but that's no issue. Now, this is where I think these enamels are special. Look how it dries, full of texture and granulation. I use a makeup sponge just slightly damp with spirits to move around and control the textures, and to remove some buildups that I think looks too unrealistic. Now, depending on how much or how little you want, keep going until you're satisfied. Now it's time for Carrion Crimson. This is an enamel wash that's kinda red, purple, pinkish, and it's perfect for irritated skin, damages, wounds, and even gore. And again, I mix this with 1-to-1 white spirits and enamel. Next up is Decrepit Filth, which is my favorite enamel from Villain's Phase 2 tester kit. This is a very dark brown, almost black enamel that dries almost matte, like old soot. This is to knock back the goon's grime and some of the lead belt shipping we did earlier to make it all more subtle. And it also adds loads of texture and hue to the armor. And there was no planning when using this, I'm just stippling on random parts of the armor to make it more interesting. No real planning, I'm just going with instinct. And again, back with a makeup sponge damp with white spirits to remove some of it and move some of it around. Now you can really see the texture on the armor, the subtle shipping combined with the goon's grime and decrepit filth. It looks old and battle-worn. But we're not done yet. We're gonna add some rust filter. So I use Sector Rust mixed 1-to-1 with white spirits, and I just dabbed and tapped in random areas. Again, no real planning or control. And for verdigris on the gold parts, I did equal parts Coelia Green and Death of Decay, and equal parts white spirits. And I immediately hit it with the hairdryer. And then I felt like the yellow cable something was just off with. I couldn't really say what it was. Something didn't sit right with me. So I just improvised on impulse here, and I went in with some Green Stuff World liquid pigments, black suit. Just covered the whole thing, but it wouldn't really take it as well as I planned because, well, oil enamels didn't really want it on there. So it is what it is. It was an experiment. Now I went in with some more lead belcher, slightly more watered down, just to just touch up some of the scratches and some of the weathering just a bit more, since a lot of it got lost under all of the enamels and effects. So I just touched it up a little bit on areas where I see fit. And remember not to overload your brush here. I unloaded most of the paint on a paper tissue because you don't want it to overpower the other effects. Now, here's a nice special effect. I poured a few drops of decrepit filth on a plastic tray with no spirits, and I hit it with the hairdryer for a few seconds so it becomes thick, almost like a paste. And I pick it up with a makeup sponge and I stipple it onto the weapon and armor. It makes like really nice oily kind of gunk and weathering, or whatever you want to view is at, but it looks very nice and it's a very cool effect. And there you have it. Here are some close-up photos and also another one I painted in the exact same scheme before. And before I leave you with a spinning 360 shot, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. If you learned anything or just enjoyed watching, Or maybe you even hated it, I don't know. Anyhow, I'd be very happy if you liked and subscribed, and if you want to see more of my upcoming videos. I'd also like to thank the man Zatcaskagoon himself over at the Grimdark Compenium for allowing me to use his own produced music. With that, I bid thee farewell. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and bye bye for now.